mercy and grace. Follow me, my Lord, to you who is my King, the one that I adore. There's not a part of me that you have not made new. Seeing your grace washing me renew. Let every part of me be broken. Will know your plan. Keep me right here. You need to show me how. So many parts of me I haven't let go. And still your mercy, and still your grace, and still your love does flow. Simply hand it all away. So many parts of me I haven't let go. Still your mercy, still your grace, still your love does flow. To live
From the birthplace of radio's greatest era, live from New York, it's Radio Night Live with Kevin McCullough.
Wait, who?
Kevin McCullough, let me start with you.
Huh?
The big dog, Kevin McCullough.
And Kevin McCullough.
No, who?
Nationally syndicated radio host and author of No He Can't.
Who? Kevin McCullough?
Kevin McCullough is a nationally syndicated radio host and author of No He Can't.
What?
Barack Obama's Dismantling Hope and Change and CEO of Extreme Media.
Oh.
Well, it's a rather sad night in America, which kind of goes against everything that my glorious networks that work so hard to put this show in so many places. And we've got 2 new affiliates to welcome tonight. But they work so hard to put this show in those places because we bill it as an irreverent look at the news of the week, and we try to have fun. But friends, sometimes the front page doesn't let us do that. Sometimes the front page is wholly committed, in fact, to keeping us separated from each other and from keeping us from seeing the brighter side of life. And it causes me to start tonight's show with a proclamation. If you tonight are watching or listening, even in our new locations, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, and Honolulu, Hawaii, welcome to both of you. Those of you on radio, those of you on television. If you tonight in America, tonight, where you sit, if you tonight look at your television news coverage and you're the least bit sympathetic to the rioters, you are standing against America, and you are standing against the justice that you say is necessary for the life of George Floyd. If you support the riots, you oppose justice for George Floyd. That's just the truth of the matter. That's how real it is. If you are tonight on the side of those who are thugging and looting and stealing, you're not American. You're the opposite of what America is. And for those that have spent this last week in the media confusing the two, claiming, as one very simple reporter did, that there was absolutely nothing but going on in any kind of unruly fashion, and directly behind them, buildings were burning down. If you're part of the media that is making that proclamation, you are a liar and you are part of the problem. If you support the rioters, you're not asking for justice for George Floyd. And while the all-out thuggery occurs and the media continues to conflate, armed theft with, quote, demonstration, or the burning of things down with, quote, constitutional dissent. I mean, this has really turned into a quite laughable mockery of anything resembling justice. And that's the point, is it not? That there are those that are using this opportunity to advance an agenda that has nothing to do with George Floyd, has nothing to do with the justice for the wrongdoing in this case. It has nothing to do with anything resembling actual truth. And that's where we find ourselves, friends, tonight, sitting here on a Saturday evening. Welcome into Saturday night, Radio Night Live. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. Up on the big board, we've got some very interesting guests for you tonight. Former police chief of the New York City Police Department, Benard Kerik, will be with us. We're also going to tap into a pastor friend of mine. His name is Dr. A.R. Benard. He is the most widely heard African-American pastor in America. He has a huge church in Brooklyn. He's got some thoughts on this. Governor Mike Huckabee, also a pastor at one point in time, a politician for much of his life, now an entertainment icon, but he is one of those that when he was governor of the state of Arkansas, he had more African Americans vote for him in that state than any governor prior to that. And here's the thing, he understands this issue inside and out. So we're gonna get some real clear conversation from law enforcement from the pastorate and from the political class on what we're seeing play out and how it's being reported and what we think about it. That's all coming up in this hour. And then in the next hour, Ladies Lounge, we've got some interesting guests. Sidney Powell is the attorney that is defending General Mike Flynn. You know, there were further unmaskings this week, and she and KT McFarland both have some really firsthand perspective on all of this. Sidney Powell and former assistant secretary in the Trump administration and former civilian equivalent in the Pentagon of a 3-star general. She was the highest ranked civilian in the Pentagon. KT McFarland will be with us. Then a little bit later on, we'll come back to the COVID-19 discussion. Karol Markowicz will join us. There are those mayors and governors and so forth that are trying to just ruin life. They don't want people to worship together in churches. They don't want families to go to the beach. They're not being reasonable in the limitations they're putting on people anymore, especially now that we've learned so much more about the coronavirus and what it actually stands for. That they don't even want you to get the vitamin D, which is actually very good in preventing and fighting the COVID-19. Vitamin D is actually very good for that. So anyway, we'll get to all that before we're done. But I want to weigh in just a bit further on a couple of these thoughts. Because last night we also had a betrayal at the Supreme Court level. Last night, the Supreme Court 5-4 returned a verdict that said they were going to allow a lower court's decision to stand, in which a California church argued that restrictions on public gatherings treated houses of worship different than businesses. And there's no question that they do. When casinos and tanning salons and coffee shops and barber shops and nail salon, beauty parlors and all the rest are allowed to open, but churches aren't, there is a discriminatory factor that's going on. And I think personally that the guys that argued this case, they handled it wrong. They made the wrong argument. It shouldn't be that the church should be treated under the Commerce Clause and be given same freedom of assembly as those that are going to those other things. They should have made the argument that we have a First Amendment right to practice our faith, and that church goers, one of the foremost practices of faith is going to church together. I posted something similar to this on Twitter today, and people, well, you still get to use your digital service. You can. No one's keeping you from worshiping. No one's keeping God from talking to you. That's not what going to church is about. And I know that for people that have rejected faith and don't want to have anything to do with faith, you just see this as a pure, just a pure interest of disease and you're trying to Karen us all and, say, oh, those Christians, they'll get together and you know what's going to happen. They're going to spread the virus to each other and then they're going to come give it to everybody else and they're a bunch of grandma killers. That's what the Karens are saying. I get all that. Doesn't mean it's true. In fact, here's the really wild thing. If you want to really understand it, the wild thing is you're fully able to open churches and allow them to determine their capacity based on recommendations and guidance from the states on what they think is safe, and still allow them to meet and be perfectly healthy. You can have a ministry out of your church that actually helps care for the vulnerable and the shut-in. In fact, most churches have a shut-in ministry that they do just to people who are shut in. But the Supreme Court, and disappointingly, Justice John Roberts, has made the decisions that churches will not be allowed to. They will be given second-class status in terms of freedoms. Hey, it's happening all around us. America is starting to open, and I want to say thank you to a new great sponsor, USA Masks Direct. Stores and businesses across the nation are starting to try and recover. The threat of the virus is not completely over, and as America reopens, it's more important than ever that you protect yourself and your family. The CDC says face masks help, and the USA Masks Direct have quality face masks, great designs, very patriotic styles. I like the Statue of Liberty one, but they've also got ones of the American flag and other things. Go to usamasks2020.com. Get your family protected. You're going to get a discount when you mention KMC at checkout. Use coupon code KMC at checkout and get 20% off your order tonight when you go. And these are washable up to 50 times, can be reused. They are super attractive. They are very cool. They are patriotic. All masks on sale right now. Use coupon code KMC at checkout for an additional 20% off. Go to usamasks2020.com. That's usamasks2020.com and get your show your patriotism. You know, and blow everybody's minds around you. You're going to be patriotic, express yourself, and care for their health at the same time. Get your patriotic USA masks direct. usamasks2020.com. Go right now. 20% off when you say KMC. Coming right back. Hi, it's Kevin McCullough, and we are reaching a very important point in the COVID-19 crisis that most people in America don't know anything about. See, the COVID crisis in America has played out along one set of talking points. We must find a cure. We've got to have a vaccine. We need new therapies. We've got to make sure that reopenings begin, which is good. That's what America needs. That's how we will get our life back on track. And it's important for that to happen because of how the COVID crisis has actually interrupted the life of the third world. Well, wait a second, Kevin. What do you mean by that? Well, it's this simple. When the first world, Europe and America and the developed countries on planet Earth, began to experience the COVID crisis, the poverty that was already engulfing third world countries took a deeper and darker hold on all of them. That is nowhere more pronounced than in the Sudan region of Africa. In the northern Sudanese country, those who have been enslaved by northern Sudanese had their conditions become worse. Slave owners couldn't get as much food, so the little bit that they were already feeding to their slaves got taken away. They also got harsher crackdown on not getting work done and more brutal circumstances like genital mutilation and starvation. Sometimes poking out slaves' eyes who choose to disobey sometimes basic and abusive orders. Friends, these things have been occurring and they continue to occur. But Christian Solidarity International, somebody that we have advocated for the last dozen years or so at Kevin McCullough, all things related to this broadcast, Radio Night Live, The Kevin McCullough Show, and all of our podcasts, one of the things we have been advocating for is the liberation of those slaves so that they're not even in the ownership of those slave masters any longer. See, they came to be slaves while the Sudanese Civil War was underway. And when government powers brokered the peace and South Sudan was created as the world's youngest nation, it didn't address, none of the global powers addressed the continuing slave scenario there. Friends, we can make a difference, as we have in years past, by choosing to liberate slave by slave on an individual underground railroad negotiated basis, not trading dollars for lives, but trading something that is of value to the slave master, a vaccine for his cattle called Novidium. It will help his cattle survive through the harsh summer and weather extremes, and in exchange, they'll release a slave. CSI has been involved in this negotiation for dozens of years and have helped freed tens of thousands. Over 100,000 slaves have now been freed. The vaccine cost about $50. And then in addition to that, CSI would like to offer every slave that is liberated what's called a bag of hope. It includes a tarp that can be turned into a tent. It includes a year's worth of sorghum seed to grow a coming crop. It includes a year's worth of sorghum grain to be able to feed themselves for the first year when they win their liberty. Friends, you can make a life for a slave know that freedom by just giving that gift of $250. They also get a she-goat to help produce some income for the family and gardening tools to help them on their way. It is a wonderful, wonderful way to help someone who has been ravaged by the COVID-19 crisis. Would you help free a slave right now? 888-342-1010 is the number. 888-342-1010. 888-342-1010. We need your help right now. 888-342-1010. That's 888-342-1010. You can also go to csi-usa.org and click on Kevin McCullough's picture. You're listening to Radio Night Live, and tonight, this first hour, we're going to focus exclusively on the violence related to the killing of George Floyd. Coming up, Mike Huckabee, Dr. A.R. Benard. But first, we start with a conversation with one Bernie Kerik.
Well, they're going to look at it, and we're going to get a report tomorrow when we get back. And we're going to get a very full report, but a very sad day.
That's the president from just outside Marine One earlier today, just kind of laying the law down. He's going to get a report, and he's going to take a look at it, and he's invoked the DOJ in the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where overnight riots continued to break out of control. A Target store was looted. An AutoZone store was burned to the ground. There were some arrests made, but the anger that was being poured out of all those people, at least initially, had to do with the now videotaped death of a police officer putting his neck on one George Floyd, who, as more and more information comes out, seems to be a guy that wasn't creating a problem for these officers. But I want to get some perspective on this from all kinds of different people in the next few minutes. So a little bit later on, Pastor A.R. Benard of the Christian Cultural Center will join us. But let me first turn to law enforcement. Former Commissioner Benard Kerik of the NYPD rejoins us. And Bernie, I'm curious, and you were very, very involved in President Trump's work on the criminal justice reform measure that passed.
Right.
This administration does have a greater focus on societal justice and trying to get it right the first time. Is the president doing the right thing by jumping in with the Justice Department and saying, we're going to automatically look at this as a murder one case?
Yeah, I think he is. And I usually don't comment, as I'm sure the president doesn't, on issues like this until there's a full and conclusive investigation. However, the video is overwhelming. The video is so compelling that I said yesterday, I said it's sickening. I talked about this last night on Sean Hannity's show. I said it was atrocious. This officer was applying unnecessary force. This guy was handcuffed. He was not resisting. He wasn't in a position to resist. He was basically telling the officer, I can't breathe. I'm dying. You're trying to kill me. You had people around the officer saying the same thing. And I have to tell you, Kevin, the more I've watched the video, and I've watched it now several times, I have to wonder about the mental faculty of this cop. When you look at him, he is distant. He is cold. Honestly, he looks like a psychopath. He's in the process of killing a man and has absolutely, I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
I can't figure it out. And it's, somebody's going to, I think the Bureau is going to have to not only look at this incident, they're going to have to look at this cop's track record, his history within the department, his history of complaints, the racial breakdown of those complaints. I think the department has to be looked at in general to see if these things have happened in the past. And if so, why hasn't the police chief or the mayor done something about it?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about this, Commissioner, and it's I think it really is to some degree a catch-22, because you don't have in that city at this point in time, you don't have a white police commissioner. You have an African American who's very accomplished and credentialed, to have gotten to the position where he's at, and you have a Democratic mayor who has come out and condemned it. And I'm just curious, given the kind of what you use the word overwhelming case that video demonstrates, why do you think there hasn't been an arrest of that officer as of yet?
Well, look, and I preface this with, I watched the mayor say last night that this officer should be in jail already and be charged. The one thing you don't want to do in a circumstance like this is you don't want to prejudge, and you don't want to take somebody, you don't want to lock somebody up without the full and total evidence, because it's going to come back to haunt you. The one thing they do not want to do is lose this case.
Right.
This guy, just based on the video, and I've watched a series of videos when they took him out of the car, when they sat him on the side, when they,
Yeah, it got
hit by
filmed
the
by
car.
all angles. Like they
Right.
suddenly had every element of this.
I believe the videos themselves tell a pretty compelling story, but there may be something else out there that nobody knows about, and I think the Justice Department and the local DA has to be very careful that they don't do something they shouldn't do just for perception or looks, and that comes back to bite them in a court of law.
Yeah. Commissioner, you're very concerned about the criminal justice reform. You thought it was a great move by the president to address something that even his predecessor had not done, and any predecessor prior to that had not done. And we want to have faith and full confidence in our police departments. We are dependent upon law enforcement to be good. And we also don't want innocent people dying at the hands of someone who has power that they shouldn't. Where do you believe, where do you begin to see steps that can be taken to more limit these occasions that we've dealt with now?
Well, you know what, Kev, I mean, everybody has to take a step back and look at the history of the country, look at the things that have happened in the past, look at these scenarios, types of scenarios that happen now. They are decreasing. When you look at the use of force that cops use today, that's decreasing. When you look at the number of shootings, officer-involved shootings,
right,
those numbers are actually decreasing.
But nobody knows that, Bernie, because Twitter exists.
Right. Nobody knows it. And the unfortunate thing is when things like this happen, it broad brushes the entire police service. You have 800,000 cops that have now been turned into racist murderers because of one moron in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So, I think people have to take a step back, let justice take its course, make sure these people are held accountable, that we're there. And I say these people, that cop, the men and women around him, the cops around him that did not prevent him from doing what he was doing,
right,
the first line supervisors, and right up the chain.
Well, and the other interesting thing about this, and to your point, there have been dozens, if not hundreds, of police organizations that have come out today and either condemned the actions of the officer or even gone so far as to call for justice to be done by way of arrest and so forth. So you do have,
and rightfully so,
a very strong pro-law enforcement voices that are saying this was wrong. You have the president saying it was wrong. You have the Democratic mayor of the city saying it was wrong, and you have civil rights leaders. It is a really kind of new day in America when you have everybody from every one of those kind of distinct perspectives speaking unison on this.
Yeah, but Kevin, listen, this isn't a scenario where you have a questionable event.
Right.
This isn't a scenario where it was a judgment call, where a cop had to make a judgment call whether he's going to use deadly force or not. This is a scenario where you got to watch this video for 4 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, where this guy was not resisting. There was absolutely, unequivocally no justification for the use of force, and for them holding him down, this guy holding him down with his knee in his neck the way he was, which caused his death.
Yeah. That's the former NYPD Commissioner Bernie Kerik, and that's really the issue. We shouldn't be using this opportunity to rob Target stores and burn AutoZone stores to the ground. I'm Kevin McCullough, coming back. Kevin McCullough, have I told you what a great night's sleep you can get by sleeping on a MyPillow? It's really true. It's changed my life for a number of years now. And ever since I've been sleeping on a MyPillow, I don't have interrupted sleep. I don't have to fold my pillows in half and stack them up on top of each other and do all kinds of weird stuff. Why? Because MyPillow will conform to the shape that I want it to, and it'll stay cool all night and keep that shape and come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. Is your pillow warranted for 10 years? I didn't think so. Well, right now, if you call MyPillow and you use my promo code, you're going to get the best offer that's ever been granted on radio or television. $69.98. That's $34.99 per pillow. That's all it costs. $69.98. 2 premiums, $34.99 each. Never seen this offer before. He called the show just to tell us what it was. Here's the phone number: 800-506-2641. Promo code KMC. Again, 800-506-2641. Promo code KMC. Or online at mypillow.com.
Hi, Kevin McCullough. Shopping for an engagement ring can be very stressful. You want a unique ring at a great price. The big jewelry stores try to sell you what they have in stock. Others try to upsell you till it's way over your budget. Disappointment inevitably sets in, and you end up settling for a ring that you're not totally satisfied with. Friends, that's why I urge every one of you, my friends, my listeners, even my family, to visit Lord's Diamonds and see my very good friend Anu. You see, Anu is different. She takes great pride in working with her client's budget, finding the right diamond, and creating a unique engagement ring that the bride cherishes forever. There is no comparison. Honesty, integrity, good Christian values. This is what Anu and Lord's Diamonds are all about. It's the height of wedding and engagement season. Don't settle. Buy a ring everyone will admire, and if you mention Kevin McCullough, you're going to get an additional $500 off the price of wedding bands. To set up an appointment, call 212-789-8500. That's 212-789-8500, or online at Lord's Diamonds. Hi, Kevin McCullough. I've been telling you about it for the longest time. The market goes up, the market goes down, the economy kind of wiggles around. Yes, we're doing better. Yes, it's pretty good days that we're in. But did you know that if something took a turn for the worse, that right now it is legal in this country, right this very second, for the government to reach into your 401k, IRA, and bank accounts, saving accounts, checking accounts, etc., and take money out and leave it instead an IOU? That's called the bail-in. Get the facts by reading about the coming bail-in when you call and get a free copy of the Landmark Capital's exclusive white paper on the coming bail-in. See how all this was set up to manage the out-of-control national debt? Learn how to protect your future and your hard-earned money by investing those funds into precious metals. So when the bail-in happens, they can't touch your precious metals, and you have peace of mind. Call Landmark today, 844-604-2575. That's 844-604.
Balance of Nature, changing the world one life at a time.
I ended up getting a cold after Thanksgiving, and usually it always goes to my chest. Not even usually, it just always goes to my chest, and I end up having to go to the doctor. This time I took 9 of the Balance of Nature for 2 days, and it totally cleared up. I was very impressed because every time I've gotten a cold for the past 5 years, it goes into my chest. And it didn't. It cleared up right away.
Don't wait to see what getting over 10 servings of whole fruits and vegetables every day can do for you. Right now, Balance of Nature is offering free shipping and 35% off on any new preferred order of fruits and veggies. Start your journey to better health today by calling 1-800-2468-751 or by going to balanceofnature.com, and make sure to receive this special radio offer by using discount code KMC.
Welcome back to Radio Night Live. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. Have you joined our effort yet to bring true justice to women and children that are in slavery in northern Sudan? Our friends at Christian Solidarity International are standing up and helping take racial and human justice to a new level. When we liberate these women from the unjust act of slavery, from having their genitals mutilated, from having them starved to death in the COVID-19 era, when we liberate them, we bring brand new life into their existence, and it is really an amazing thing. For a $25 gift for only 10 months, or a $50 gift for 5 months, you could liberate a slave forever with Christian Solidarity International and make sure they receive enough food during the COVID-19 crisis to survive for the next year. That's what that $250 will do. It'll do all of that. It will liberate them and give them enough food and a place to sleep. And a micro-enterprise startup. They get a she-goat. They can create milk products, have more goat kids, etc. Friends, it's really an amazing program. 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010. I will give you an update on how many we have liberated, but we need your help. 888-342-1010. Dr. A.R. Benard is a pastor, and he is one that has watched all of this take place. And Pastor, it is one of those things where it's odd to have the whole country unified, but welcome back to Radio Night Live.
You know, it depends on the lens. And first of all, thank you for the invitation whenever I have the opportunity to be on your program. And let me concur that there seems to be a national consensus of outrage that we haven't had in a long time in this country. We have been divided for the last several years in ways that we never imagined our nation would be. And yet, on this particular situation, it seems like the whole country is expressing the same outrage. And I think that is special.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised when Sean Hannity on Fox made a comment that, you know, he looked at the video and he did talk about his martial arts and the pressure point of the carotid artery and how that chokes off oxygen to the brain, which leads to death. You know, I mean, that was excellent to hear people on both sides of the aisle condemning this.
Yeah.
And I think that
Republican also working together and talking about, you know, because they didn't wait around for the feds to see what they were going to do this time. The Justice Department just jumped in with both feet and said, okay, let's go. To me, there's not much to discuss about this.
Well, yeah, and in the beginning you asked a question about the fact that there has not been an arrest and time over the last 42 years, and I'm wondering if the firing put them in a classification of being citizens. So when you try a citizen on a case like this, it's different than when you have a police officer.
That makes
sense.
There
are different rules that come into play. So it may be a very wise decision on how this is playing out to have these individuals end up being charged as citizens. And then there's a different game,
yeah.
You know?
One justice, which I'm hopeful that we'll get to. But Pastor, in just our final couple of minutes here, what are your thoughts about how we go forward from this? Should this be the topic of, you know, pulpits across America this weekend, and what larger justice looks
like? You know, Kevin, I posted on my social media platform that we need to have a serious conversation in this country about our social systems, structures, policies, and practices. And I point to policy because it is police policy to put that knee in the back of someone. Officer was doing, not for the period of time, not for the length of time, not after you have someone handcuffed and subdued that you continue those actions.
Yeah.
But as long as there are policies that allow this, then we will have people like this officer, because I support police, I support sides the kind of discretion that they should if they are humane in their thinking.
Well said. Pastor A.R. Benard, Christian Cultural Center, thanks for taking time out for us today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Radio Night Live continues in a moment. Hi, it's Kevin McCullough, and we are reaching a very important point in the COVID-19 crisis that most people in America don't know anything about. See, the COVID crisis in America has played out along one set of talking points. We must find a cure. We've got to have a vaccine. Good. That's what America needs. That's how we will get our life back on track. And it's important for that to happen because of how the COVID crisis has actually interrupted the life of the third world. Well, wait a second, Kevin. What do you mean by that? Well, it's this simple. When the first world, Europe and America and the poverty that was already engulfing third world countries took a deeper and darker hold on all of them. That is nowhere more pronounced than in the Sudan region of Africa. In the northern Sudanese country, those who have been enslaved by northern Sudanese had a little bit that they were already feeding to their slaves got taken away. They also got harsher crackdown on not getting work done and more brutal circumstances like genital mutilation and starvation, sometimes poking out slaves' eyes. These things have been occurring and they continue to occur. But Christian Solidarity International, somebody that we have advocated for the last dozen years or so at Kevin McCullough, all things related to this broadcast, Radio Night Live, the Kevin McCullough Show, and all of our podcasts, one of the things we have been advocating for is the any longer. See, they came to be slaves while the Sudanese Civil War was underway. And when government powers brokered the peace and South Sudan was created as the world's youngest nation, it didn't address, none of the global powers addressed the continuing slave to liberate slave by slave on an individual underground railroad negotiated basis. Not trading dollars for lives, but trading something that is of value to the slave master, a vaccine for his cattle called Novidium. It will help his cattle survive through the harsh summer and CSI has been involved in this negotiation for dozens of years and have helped freed tens of thousands. Over 100,000 slaves have now been freed. The vaccine cost about $50. And then in addition to that, CSI would like to offer every slave that is liberated what's called a bag of hope. It includes a tarp that can be turned into includes a year's worth of sorghum grain to be able to feed themselves for the first year when they win their liberty. Friends, you can make a life for a slave know that freedom by just giving that gift of $250. They also get a she-goat to help produce some income. Way to help someone who has been ravaged by the COVID-19 crisis. Would you help free a slave right now? 888-342-1010 is the number. 888-342-1010. 888-342-1010. We need your help right now. 888-342-1010. .org and click on Kevin McCullough's picture. Welcome back to Radio Night Live. Friends, do you have your patriotic America First face masks? If you're going to be in a place where they're going to advise you to keep wearing face masks for a while, why not get one? Is where I want you to go to get yours. USAmasks2020.com. USAmasks2020.com. And use my promo code KMC when you do. And when you do, you will receive, and this is a beautiful thing, you will receive not only very making the world a better place and expressing our love for freedom all at the same time. Just use my promo code. You can get 20% off your order when you call, and these are rewashable up to 50 times. So it's a good value. USAmasks2020.com, USAmasks2020.com. Mess that we're in right now. Welcome back. What do you make of it?
Well, it's a mess because some people are using it as an opportunity rather than to respect the tragic death of George Floyd. They're using it as an excuse to steal, to rob, to pilfer, to destroy and riot. It's dishonoring to the life and even to the crime committed against George Floyd by the police officers than for people to take the attention away from George Floyd, put it upon themselves and upon their sense of outrage, and to go and burn their own neighborhoods down. This is crazy stuff. Guys, nobody, and I mean nobody, is on the other side of this issue. Everyone agrees, conservative, liberals, in the middle, police, people who hate the police. Everyone agrees that what was done to this young man was murder. You can't be pro-police and support this, because this is not about police activity. This is about brutalizing and torturing an individual until he dies, and to do it in the name of the law, and to do it with a badge and a gun. I think we hold police officers so we have a situation where people are exploiting it for their own selfish reasons, and I think it's an incredible dishonoring of the life of George Floyd. If they say they care about him and they care about justice and equality, if they care even about racism, this is no way. They hate what has happened in this situation in Minneapolis.
Well, and I was watching our good friend Harris Faulkner's broadcast on Fox yesterday, and Guy Benson from townhall.com brought up the protests that had taken place. This was last night, so it was the previous couple of nights. And Jessica Tarr allow this to become about the protests. We've got to make sure that the protest doesn't become the story, that instead we focus on the inequality of what happened to George Floyd. And I think everybody agreed. But the problem is that once you decide that Floyd stealing big screens, burning down auto zones, completely dismantling police precincts, it seems to me George Floyd becomes the lost person in the whole conversation, because I've never seen more justice come from a bunch of additional criminality being carried out. I don't.
It's not a protest. That's a riot. There's a big difference. A protest is where any number of people can get together and peacefully assemble.
Yeah.
March, they can shout, they can sing, they can wave banners, but they don't do it with disrespect of other people or disrespect of people's property. When you that somebody has to pay for, that's not a protest. That's a crime.
Well, that's why I was very thankful that our friend Harris quickly added to Jessica, but Dr. King saw it completely differently. And,
absolutely.
And of course he did. Hey, let me shift gears a little bit. The president and Twitter have your view of his ability to be able to, limit the social media platforms, if you will, as they currently exist, and how much do those platforms play into the larger discussion of free speech?
Well, free decides that only one side is really free and the other side is going to be shut down because they don't like the content. That's the opposite of free speech. So what the president is saying to the social media companies is this: you want to be a common carrier like the phone company, where you provide the lines, we provide the speech, but you don't tell us what we can say. You want to be a publisher. If you want to decide that some people can be heard and some people can't, then you're going to be able to put yourself in a position where you can be sued for libel and defamation and sued for discrimination. And if you don't want that, which you can't imagine that they would, then quit. Then you're going to have to pay the price, and that price is liability for what you allow and what you don't allow, and for there being some kind of sense of fairness and objectivity with it.
And that's why Zuckerberg has figured this out and Jack hasn't.
Yeah, I'm amazed that Jack hole he'll never step out of. And if he really wants to keep pushing this, I'll tell you what'll happen. It'll be the same antitrust legislation that broke up AT&T, that broke up one-time Standard Oil, that decided when something becomes a monopoly and the public is no longer served, but that the step in and break it up. That's where we're headed. unless they decide that they're going to step back and allow free speech to happen. And the way it should work, Kevin, is that rather than Jack Dorsey deciding that I shouldn't say something about you, if I do say something about you, you can sue me, but you sue me, not Twitter.
Well, and that's not a win for any of the social media platforms. And I've been very grateful that Zuckerberg has at least said the things that he said, and I think he does get it. You don't be the carrier. Let the content creators make the content. You be the with us. We always appreciate it. Kevin McCullough. It is Radio Night Live, and Hour 2 still on the way. Sidney Powell, KT McFarland, and Karol Markowicz. Don't go anywhere.
Kevin McCullough, have I told you it's changed my life for a number of years now? And ever since I've been sleeping on a MyPillow, I don't have interrupted sleep. I don't have to fold my pillows in half and stack them up on top of each other and do all kinds of weird stuff. Why? Because MyPillow will conform to the shape that I want it to, and it'll stay cool all night and keep that shape and come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Right now, if you call MyPillow and you use my promo code, you're going to get the best offer that's ever been granted on radio or television. $69.98. That's $34.99 per pillow. That's all it costs. $69.98. 2 premiums, $34.99 each. Never seen this offer before. He called the show just KMC. Again, 800-506-2641, promo code KMC, or online at mypillow.com. Hi, Kevin McCullough. Shopping for an engagement ring can be very stressful. You want a unique ring at a great price. The big jewelry stores try to sell you what they have in stock. Others try to upsell that you're not totally satisfied with. Friends, that's why I urge every one of you, my friends, my listeners, even my family, to visit Lord's Diamonds and see my very good friend Anu. You see, Anu is different. She takes great pride in working with her client's budget, finding the right diamond, and creating a unique engagement ring that the good Christian values. This is what Anu and Lord's Diamonds are all about. It's the height of wedding and engagement season. Don't settle. Buy a ring everyone will admire, and if you mention Kevin McCullough, you're going to get an additional $500 off the price of wedding bands. To set up an appointment, call 212-789-8500. That's 212. Been telling you about it for the longest time. The market goes up, the market goes down, the economy kind of wiggles around. Yes, we're doing better. Yes, it's pretty good days that we're in. But did you know that if something took a turn for the worse, that right now it is legal in this country, right this very second, for the government to reach into your and take money out and leave it instead an IOU. That's called the bail-in. Get the facts by reading about the coming bail-in when you call and get a free copy of the Landmark Capital's exclusive white paper on the coming bail-in. See how all this was set up to manage the out-of-control national debt? Learn how to so when the bail-in happens, they can't touch your precious metals, and you have peace of mind. Call Landmark today, 844-604-2575.
And Kevin McCullough, glad to have you back with us as we are closing out the final few minutes. Saddened by all of it. There's lots of conversation yet to come in the second hour, by the way. We have got with us on the lineup a great ladies' lounge tonight. Sidney Powell, who is the attorney representing General Michael Flynn, will be joining us. KT McFarland, the former civilian equivalent of a 3-star general in the Pentagon. She'll to get to. But I want to take a time out to remind you of something that we are doing that I find to be extremely special. It's probably been 4 years now that we have introduced to you here on Saturday nights the opportunity And part of it is because there's great evil on planet Earth, and we see that. We see that in the injustice of what's going on, both what happened in George Floyd's death, but also in the riots that are now responding to it. We see that evil and injustice still exists. But friends, I don't know of a greater evil even comes close to the pain and the frustration and the humiliation and the degradation that causes. And it's one of the reasons why I have been very eager to help Christian Solidarity International get the word out on how we can end this blight. See, the world government countries, and they said the South could not be attacked by the North, but they didn't do anything to liberate the hundreds of thousands of women and children who had been taken as slaves. And that's the time period, by the way, when Adat was born. Her mother and father were captured by the Arabs and taken to northern master, Musa Ibrahim. And Adat said she was playing outside with other slave children when Arabs came and took her away from her mother. So she lost twice. She was taken once from her country and once from her mom. She cried for help, but her mother couldn't do anything to help her. When she was older, Christian Solidarity International Liberators, she just wept. She thought that she would have been killed immediately by Arabs. She told the CSI people in Arabic, Ashkat, shut up, and always said they looked at her with anger. The Arabs warned her if she continued to cry, he would shoot her. In another village, and she was made to work for another slave Arab master's family. That master had 2 wives. She washed their clothes and cleaned their house. She was forced to convert to Islam, which included genital mutilation against her will. And then came the repetitive rapes. And brought home. Her life changed. And friends, someone listening to my show was the one that liberated Adat last year. Will you help us this year? 888-342-1010, $25 a month. And you can release the next Adat into continual liberty. 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010.
So his life they cheaply spent. He was a dead man walking, who did not put up a fight. A dead man walking, he didn't speak and still he died. Just a man that struggles with himself to do the things you know to do. What's left stays on the shelf. So when your time has come and you see him standing face to face, your faith be best predestined as you fall onto his grace. You are a dead man walking. Reach out and grab his hand. A dead man walking. Look around, where do you stand? Simply believe that this dead man is no longer dead, and you'll be no more a dead man, except to your oaths. You are a dead man walking. Reach out and grab his hand. Dead man walking. Look around, where do you stand? Simply believe that this dead man is no longer dead, and you'll be no more a dead man, except to your oaths. This dead man is no longer dead. Your oaths, except to your no more oaths. Storm-filled horizon, innocence long gone. Daughter turns to mother. What did I do wrong? Frustration overtakes her. Love is not the enemy. Love is for the dignity. And with the hurts, the pain, love will prove it again. Amazing the power of true love. So many storms in his past, but his future does not die. The trauma of a lifetime burns in his little eyes. But true love overtakes him. Love is not the enemy. Love is full of dignity. And with the hurts and the pain, love will prove it again. Amazing the power of true love.
From the birthplace of radio's greatest era, live from New York, it's Radio Night Live with Kevin McCullough.
Wait, who?
Kevin McCullough, let me start with you.
Huh?
The big dog, Kevin McCullough.
And Kevin McCullough,
No, who?
nationally syndicated radio host and author of No He Can't.
Who? Kevin McCullough?
Kevin McCullough is a nationally syndicated radio host and author of No He Can't.
What?
Barack Obama's Dismantling Hope and Change and CEO of Extreme Media.
Oh.
Well, good Saturday evening, friends. We are off and running our number 2 on the way, and it will be a big one. We've got a lot of big names. Sidney Powell is back with us. You know her. She's the defense attorney representing General Michael Flynn and was the one who got the federal government to drop the charges. Oddly, weirdly, the judge in that case is still making a lot of trouble, and she will talk to us about that. Then, speaking of trouble and unmasking and all those things, KT McFarland was an assistant secretary in the Trump administration in the national security arena, and actually one of the subjects to General Flynn working in his department, and actually was unmasked. She will tell us her own story now that these new documents are out. What difference does it make? Well, it still matters a great deal to the identity and privacy of people, especially when we're not supposed to be a country that engages in that kind of stuff. And then Karol Markowicz is also going to be with us. Before we're done, is there class warfare on bans on beaches? We'll talk about all of it. But up first, the defender, Michael Flynn.
There's been a dearth of journalists asking the real questions for President Obama, the criminal leak of Michael Flynn's identity. Who leaked that identity? The dossier, which was used to launch a 3-year investigation into this president and spy on his campaign. Why aren't those questions being asked? It's journalistic malpractice.
I love that press secretary we've got in there now. Kayleigh McEnany taking names and not asking questions. In fact, asking questions that should be asked by the people she's taking the names from. Anyway, welcome. It's Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you with us. That voice right there chiming in is the one and only Sidney Powell, who is, of course, the defense attorney for one General Michael Flynn, who had the temerity to go up against everybody and get her client cleared. But where do things stand? And this judge continues to embarrass himself. What's happening there? Let's get some inside perspective. Sidney, welcome back to the broadcast. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
The book is called Conviction Machine, Standing Up to Federal Prosecutorial Abuse. Sidney, since we last spoke, what has happened? I think a lot of people don't follow the jot and tittle every day, but this judge has continued to be, I don't know, perplexing to say the least in terms of his behavior.
Yes, he appointed a special friend of the court, called an amicus in court language, to represent the judge's own interest in pursuing a contempt charge against General Flynn for perjury, apparently, after the government agreed there was a significant government misconduct and hiding evidence that showed General Flynn was innocent, and moved to dismiss the charges against him. So the entire situation has just gotten more and more bizarre. And now he has hired a lawyer to represent himself. He hired Beth Wilkinson, who is a friend of Catherine Rumler from the Obama White House and one of the defenders of Hillary Clinton in the email scandal. And she has just appeared for him today in front of the Court of Appeals. The court ordered him personally to respond. It remains to be seen if they're going to allow counsel for him in this situation, because obviously he's capable of filing a response himself. And it kind of raises a number of other ethical issues too, because is he going to consult with her about his decision-making process in the case?
Well, I mean, that's where you really start to have head scratchers, because this guy's supposed to be a judge. He's supposed to have the insight to conduct his duties under the law, to do so without bias, and to do so faithfully. I've never heard of a judge hiring an attorney to represent them in a standing, that was one of their own court's decisions.
I haven't either, and I've gotten a fair number of mandamus petitions against federal judges throughout my career.
Right.
It's just absolutely bizarre. And of course, his appointment of an amicus to pursue additional charges against General Flynn because the government moved to dismiss is bizarre also. I mean, the government's motion was 15 or 20 pages in great detail with extraordinary exhibits attached that clearly show suppression of Brady evidence, which would entitle somebody to a new trial even if they'd been convicted by a jury. And here we had moved to withdraw General Flynn's plea for any number of reasons, including ineffective assistance of his counsel, their untenable conflict of interest pursuant to which they should have withdrawn and never represented him past August of the first year of their representation. I mean, there was just one problem after another. Nothing was done right in this case from day one because there never was a case. And his plea was coerced. We even found documentary evidence of that was hidden from the court, unless he knew for some reason and didn't do anything about it. So I don't know.
That raises a whole host of interesting questions, Sidney. We're speaking with Sidney Powell. She's the author of Conviction Machine: Standing Up to Federal Prosecutorial Abuse, and most famously, she helped General Flynn clear his good name. Let's talk about some of the legal machinations that you've just laid out, but in a more street-friendly way, if you will, because I want my listeners to really understand what's happening here. The people that brought the case basically said, we don't have a case, and we did things wrong in the process of bringing the case the first time. This judge didn't like the fact that the prosecutors did that, and so he has now inserted a process by which he hopes to continue kind of the corrupt proceeding against General Flynn. Where does this come to an end, Sidney Powell?
Well, I think the appellate court, the D.C. Court of Appeals, is going to bring it to an end because we filed an extraordinary proceeding against him to ask the court to tell him and order him to dismiss the case on the government's motion, because there are two constitutional principles at issue here that are just mandatory, for lack of a better word, that he has to follow. One is the fact there's no case in controversy because both parties to the case have agreed there's nothing left to do except dismiss it. And also the executive branch, the Department of Justice, is part of the executive branch, and only it has the authority to prosecute. So he's like taken off his robe and turned into a prosecutor with absolutely no basis whatsoever to do it. It's just astounding.
Right. He's not been empowered by any way to do that. So let me ask you this: that's all of the chess that's on the eye level. That's what we see. That's where the pieces are, so to speak. What's going on behind the scenes? What's the real story from where you sit? You did a lot of research about General Flynn's case before he ever enlisted you as his defense. What is the connection to this judge and to the kind of corrupt proceedings that entrapped General Flynn, and why is he still after this? What's the real story behind this?
Well, I can't say that I know. I mean, his behavior is nothing short of bizarre, but I don't know what is motivating that. I mean, I've bragged on Judge Sullivan for 6 years as the judicial hero of my first book, License to Lie, exposing corruption in the Department of Justice, because he dismissed the jury verdict against Ted Stevens, the former Alaska senator, because the government had hidden evidence that showed Stevens was innocent. The same thing has now happened here, and he refuses to dismiss it. It makes no sense at all. And Eric Holder's the one who asked him to dismiss the Stevens case. I can tell you that in his 92-page decision denying me any Brady evidence at all in the Flynn case, despite the government's admission that there was some that they weren't giving me other than a summary, he distinguished the Stevens case on the basis that case the government had moved to dismiss. And now the government moves to dismiss, and he still won't do it.
It is really striking. I mean, we've heard of the term activist judges, but Sidney, this is extraordinary, even by what we typically think of that term to mean.
It definitely is. And we also gave him examples of where the government has moved to dismiss and vacate guilty pleas before, even some by Andrew Weissman and his company, part of the Mueller team in earlier cases where they bludgeoned guilty pleas out of people to things that weren't criminal offenses. That's exactly what happened here.
Well, and friends, if you want to go into a little bit deeper detail with what Sidney is describing, she went into that in our first time together. Go back and get that podcast. But Sidney Powell, thank you for being with us today, and we're going to keep watching and keep our eyes open and be ready to speak out if necessary. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. And please look at the actual documents and exhibits on my website at sidneypowell.com. They're all posted there. The exhibits tell it all.
We would be glad to do that. Sidney Powell, S-I-D-N-E-Y, Powell, Powell.com. And the book is Conviction Machine, Standing Up to Federal Prosecutorial Abuse. Sidney, have a great week. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Radio Night Live and the Ladies Lounge continues. Up next, one KT McFarland. Glad to have the longtime friend back on the show. Stay with us. Hi, it's Kevin McCullough, and we are reaching a very important point in the COVID-19 crisis that most people in America don't know anything about. See, the COVID crisis in America has played out along one set of talking points. We must find a cure. We've got to have a vaccine. We need new therapies. We've got to make sure that reopenings begin, which is good. That's what America needs. That's how we will get our life back on track. And it's important for that to happen because of how the COVID crisis has actually interrupted the life of the third world. Well, wait a second, Kevin. What do you mean by that? Well, it's this simple. When the first world, Europe and America and the developed countries on planet Earth, began to experience the COVID crisis, the poverty that was already engulfing third world countries took a deeper and darker hold on all of them. That is nowhere more pronounced than in the Sudan region of Africa. In the northern Sudanese country, those who have been enslaved by northern Sudanese had their conditions become worse. Slave owners couldn't get as much food, so the little bit that they were already feeding to their slaves got taken away. They also got harsher crackdown on not getting work done and more brutal circumstances like genital mutilation and starvation. Sometimes poking out slaves' eyes who choose to disobey sometimes basic and abusive orders. Friends, these things have been occurring and they continue to occur. But Christian Solidarity International, somebody that we have advocated for the last dozen years or so at Kevin McCullough, all things related to this broadcast, Radio Night Live, The Kevin McCullough Show, and all of our podcasts, one of the things we have been advocating for is the liberation of those slaves so that they're not even in the ownership of those slave masters any longer. See, they came to be slaves while the Sudanese Civil War was underway. And when government powers brokered the peace and South Sudan was created as the world's youngest nation, it didn't address, none of the global powers addressed the continuing slave scenario there. Friends, we can make a difference as we have in years past by choosing to liberate slave by slave on an individual for lives, but trading something that is of value to the slave master, a vaccine for his cattle called Novidium. It will help his cattle survive through the harsh summer and weather extremes, and in exchange, they'll release a slave. CSI has been involved in this negotiation for dozens of years and have helped freed tens of thousands. Over 100,000 slaves have now been freed. The vaccine cost about $50. And then in addition to that, CSI would like to offer every slave that is liberated what's called a bag of hope. It includes a tarp that can be turned into a tent. It includes a year's worth of sorghum seed to grow a coming crop. It includes a year's worth of sorghum grain to be able to feed themselves for the first year when they win their liberty. Friends, you can make a life for a slave know that freedom by just giving that gift of $250. They also get a she-goat to help produce some income for the family and gardening tools to help them on their way. It is a wonderful, wonderful way to help someone who has been ravaged by the COVID-19 crisis. Would you help free a slave right now? 888-342-1010 is the number. 888-342-1010. 888-342-1010. We need your help right now. 888-342-1010. That's 888-342-1010. You can also go to csi-usa.org and click on Kevin McCullough's picture. So good to have you on a Saturday night. Thank you for being here. Thank you for also caring about those women and children enslaved in northern Sudan that we are working fast and furiously. Friends, when I say fast and furiously, we've already liberated 31 going on tonight, 31 individual slaves that have been captured and held against their will. Some of them for dozens of years, some of them enduring things like genital mutilation, female genital mutilation, being forced to convert to Islam, being forced to sexually service masters and sons of masters. Friends, it has just been a hideous life for most of these women and children. And tonight we have the opportunity to once again step forward. We have we know of a list that CSI has told us negotiations have already started on behalf of the slave retrievers and their masters, and we are in the middle of those conversations. And when those slaves have been given their liberation, they are going to need that bag of hope that CSI gives them, which includes enough food for the coming year, even in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, plus a tarp and some gardening tools and other things that will help them not only have a place to live, but to provide for themselves in the coming days. It's really something. 888-342-1010. Now, in the Ladies' Lounge, turning to one of my very good friends, KT McFarland. And KT, I always am curious how people have been surviving the COVID shutdown. What about you and your family?
Well, actually, it's been really terrific for the McFarland family. And I mean, I know it's not been horrible for so many people, but for us, my husband and I live in New York, and we flew to Florida, to Sarasota, to stay with our daughter, who had just had a baby on March 3rd. So we came, our grandson, and this is their first baby. And so, you know, Alan and I flew to Florida. We were going to be good grandparents, you know, do the laundry, do the middle of the night feedings. And then once the pandemic came, we thought, well, what the heck? We're just staying here. So we've been house guests. For, you know, the mother-in-law is here.
So not only did the new mom have a little visit, now she had permanent house guests for the entire lockdown.
Exactly. Well, but it's worked out really well. And you know what's the wonderful
and you'll
thing
never regret that time. Like,
no, it's given us time. You know, normally grandparents see the grandchild for a couple of hours, or maybe over a long weekend or a holiday.
Right.
But 4 months, you really get to know each other again. And I think it's, for our family, it's been a real blessing. So, and plus my daughter is running for the Florida State House, Sarasota, Fiona McFarland.
I did not know that.
Fiona for Florida.
There you go.
You should all go there. And so it's given her a chance to figure out how to campaign in a very different way, and be a new mother and be a Naval Reserve officer. And
that's the problem with you, McFarland. You're just always underachieving on all fronts. KT is also the author of a new book called Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People, which she talked about the last time she was with us, but it had not yet come out, and it is now a #1 Amazon bestseller. And KT, congratulations on the success of that. That's incredible.
Thank you very much. It's been very reassuring. And also because, Kevin, so much of what I talked about has come true.
I'm watching it on my TV screen every day. So I got to ask you, because, you know, the Flynn stuff had not been revealed when we last spoke, but the unmasking and the entire unmasking saga that is now earned its own Department of Justice full-fledged investigation being assigned outside the Beltway. Your take on the recent headlines? I mean, you were part of those people that they were looking into and going after, and you know, lifting the edge of the tent to see what was going on inside.
Yes, I was. Their plan was to, and I think it was a cabal. It was a cabal of senior intelligence officials, you know, Brennan, Clapper, et cetera, Comey, senior people in the White House of the Obama administration, and the media. And they They all were kind of working on it together. They knew the Russia thing was a hoax from the very beginning. And as the recently declassified documents of congressional testimony show, people like Brennan and Clapper and Comey, they were going to Capitol Hill and in classified briefings telling the House Intelligence Committee there's no collusion, Trump is not a Russian agent. And then yet they were scampering out of those meetings to the media and saying, oh, yeah, Trump would never have won without Russian collusion, and Donald Trump is a Russian asset. So they were lying to the American people the whole time. They'd cooked this thing up, and they've gotten the American people, running at each other's throats for 3 years on a total fraud and hoax. And it's now starting to come out. And the unmasking part is particularly interesting. That'll be the next thing that happens.
Well, and the reason that's important is because it is potentially, well, I used to say potentially, I don't think it is potential anymore. I think that January 5th meeting in the Oval Office seems to indicate that Biden and Obama were all in on it and knew all about it from the get-go.
Yeah. Now, there are three things to look at for the unmasking. One, and one observation. The observation is the Attorney General Barr. I think he doesn't trust his main Justice Department in Washington or FBI because he has, as you point out, he's farmed these investigations out. John Durham, the U.S. Attorney in Connecticut, is looking at the whole Russiagate thing. Jeffrey Jensen from Missouri, he's looked at the Flynn aspect of it.
Right.
And now just yesterday, John Bash, U.S. Attorney from Texas, he's looking at the unmaskings. Now, the reason unmaskings are going to be pretty interesting is, first of all, Trump has said now that it wasn't just Flynn. The unmaskings weren't just Flynn. I was unmasked. But it was Ivanka, Donald Jr., Eric Trump. And when you have these wiretaps, because that's what they are, they're done by the National Security Agency, and they're done for foreigners. And if the foreigner is talking to an American citizen, to be unmasked, there has to be a good reason. It can't just be, I wonder what they're up to.
Right.
There has to be a legitimate. And so when the investigation comes, it'll be the easiest thing in the world to call in the people whose names are on those forms and say, Susan Rice, you requested unmasking. Why? Or James Comey, you had unmaskings. What was your point here? And if they say either, well, I didn't ever put my name on that form, or if they don't know what their reasons were, then those individuals are in a lot of trouble. The other thing, though, and this is kind of in the weeds, but it's not really.
Okay.
Which is that the famous phone call between the Russian ambassador and General Flynn on December 29th, that was never unmasked. Now, it's a phone call that we know that the Obama administration had a transcript of. We know that they gave it to the Washington Post reporters because the Washington Post reporters wrote about it. And if it wasn't unmasked, that means it wasn't collected by the National Security Agency. Who was wiretapping General Flynn? Was it the FBI? You can't do that without a FISA warrant. Was it the CIA? Oh boy, are we in trouble then? So there's a lot of sort of onion layers to peel off.
So Barr's short story is Barr, by giving these to the U.S. attorneys far outside the Beltway, seems to underscore your belief that he doesn't trust necessarily the Washington connections there, and that wrongdoing may extend even further than we've realized to this point. That is very compelling stuff, KT. Sadly, we're out of time for today to discuss it, but I'm glad that you're able to have voice and to speak out about it now, because your life was certainly interrupted. Certainly General Flynn's was as well, and I think that there needs to be some recompense for all of it.
Well, you keep pounding away at it, Kevin, because this is the biggest political scandal in American history.
I agree with that. Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. KT McFarland, its author. It is a #1 Amazon bestseller. KT, have a great weekend with that grandbaby. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Bye.
There she goes, off to see the grandbaby while being under lockdown. Well, not so much anymore. Florida's pretty much open. Man, I wish we lived there. Kevin McCullough, have I told you what a great night's sleep you can get by sleeping on a MyPillow? It's really true.
It's changed my life for a number of years now. And ever since I've been sleeping on a MyPillow, I don't have interrupted sleep. I don't have to fold my pillows in half and stack them up on top of each other and do all kinds of weird stuff. Why? Because MyPillow will conform to the shape that I want it to, and it'll stay cool all night and keep that shape and come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. Is your pillow warranted for 10 years? I didn't think so. Well, right now, if you call MyPillow and you use my promo code, you're going to get the best offer that's ever been granted on radio or television. $69.98. That's $34.99 per pillow. That's all it costs. $69.98. 2 premiums, $34.99 each. Never seen this offer before. He called the show just to tell us what it was. Here's the phone number. 800-506-2641. Promo code KMC. Again, 800-506-2641. Promo code KMC. Or online at mypillow.com. Hi, Kevin McCullough. Shopping for an engagement ring can be very stressful. You want a unique ring at a great price. The big jewelry stores try to sell you what they have in stock. Others try to upsell you till it's way over your budget. Disappointment inevitably sets in, and you end up settling for a ring that you're not totally satisfied with. Friends, that's why I urge every one of you, my friends, my listeners, even my family, to visit Lord's Diamonds and see my very good friend Anu. You see, Anu is different. She takes great pride in working with her client's budget, finding the right diamond, and creating a unique engagement ring that the bride cherishes forever. There is no comparison. Honesty, integrity, good Christian values. This is what Anu and Lord's Diamonds are all about. It's the height of wedding and engagement season. Don't settle. Buy a ring everyone will admire, and if you mention Kevin McCullough, you're going to get an additional $500 off the price of wedding bands. To set up an appointment, call 212-789-8500. That's 212-789-8500, or online at Lord's Diamonds. Hi, Kevin McCullough. I've been telling you about it for the longest time. The market goes up, the market goes down, the economy kind of wiggles around. Yes, we're doing better. Yes, it's pretty good days that we're in. But did you know that if something took a turn for the worse, that right now it is legal in this country, right this very second, for the government to reach into your 401k, IRA, and bank accounts, saving accounts, checking accounts, etc., and take money out and leave it instead an IOU? That's called the bail-in. Get the facts by reading about the coming bail-in when you call and get a free copy of the Landmark Capital's exclusive white paper on the coming bail-in. See how all this was set up to manage the out-of-control national debt? Learn how to protect your future and your hard-earned money by investing those funds into precious metals. So when the bail-in happens, they can't touch your precious metals, and you have peace of mind. Call Landmark today, 844-604-2575. That's 844-604.
Balance of Nature, changing the world one life at a time.
I ended up getting a cold after Thanksgiving, and usually it always goes to my chest. Not even a usually, it just always goes to my chest, and I end up having to go to the doctor. This time I took 9 of the Balance of Nature for 2 days, and it totally cleared up. I was very impressed because every time I've gotten a cold for the past 5 years, it goes into my chest. And it didn't. It cleared up right away.
Don't wait to see what getting over 10 servings of whole fruits and vegetables every day can do for you. Right now, Balance of Nature is offering free shipping and 35% off on any new preferred order of fruits and veggies. Start your journey to better health today by calling 1-800-2468-751 or by going to balanceofnature.com, and make sure to receive this special radio offer by using discount code KMC.
And yet to come tonight on Radio Night Live, we've got Karol Markowicz, who's going to be joining us to talk about the class warfare, if you will, how some mayors and governors are even trying to ban your use of public lands like beaches to get across their own ideas of what they believe class fairness or access or equal opportunity should be. It's a fascinating discussion. She wrote about it in the New York Post this last week, and she joins us in just a little bit. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. And glad for those of you that are responding to our desire to help liberate the enslaved of South Sudan that are enslaved in Northern Sudan. Last hour I told you about a young woman named Adat who was repeatedly raped, mutilated, just treated as incomprehensibly horribly as you can imagine. And last year, it was a listener to this show that called in 888-342-1010 and said, I want to liberate a slave. And it was that person's gift, $25 a month times 10 months, or $50 a month times 5 months, or a one-time gift of $250. It was someone's individual gift that gave the CSI, Christian Solidarity International, the resources they needed to, when they retrieved her from the slave master, to be able to help her start her new life over again. And right now, we are aware that there are 96 individual liberations that are being negotiated right now. And some people say, well, how does it work? Let me quickly describe for you how that happens. Very quickly. The $250 that you give, about $50 of that is what it costs to purchase something called a vaccine of Novidium. Novidium is a drug that will help cattle withstand harsh weather circumstances, harsh heat, and the things that they face in the Sudan, where these slave masters, most of them are cattle guys, they value their cattle more than they value the lives of their slaves, and so their cattle die every year in the heat, and the Novidium will help them survive. And so what we never at CSI, we never trade cash for people, because that just encourages more people to be taken. But these are slaves that have been held for sometimes dozens of years and should have been released at the end of the Sudan Civil War, but none of the world governments forced them to do it. So now CSI is one by one, and by the way, in this process, we have liberated more than 100,000 over the last 15 years. But here's the thing. We have 96 liberation negotiations going on. If we can get them the Novidium vaccine, then they will liberate one slave for each vaccine. And when we are able to recoup them and get them back to South Sudan and get them over the border, then the CSI recovery camp kicks in, and they get to tell their story, and they get to have medical care. Some of these women have had their genitals mutilated for years and never had them properly examined or looked at or anything by a doctor since. And some of them have had very difficult medical circumstances to recover from. But CSI has medical care there. They've got counselors. They've got people that will help them document who they are, help them remember their story, their name, the region that they're from in South Sudan. And then after they've had some period of recovery with fellow slaves that are all kind of coming out of the same life, they are then given the other part of what your gift gives, and that is the bag of hope. And the bag of hope is amazing. It's a year's worth of seed to plant sorghum for the coming year, so they have something a year from now to eat. But it's also a year's worth of sorghum grain that they can begin to use now to eat. So they have present needs cared for, and they have future needs cared for. They're given a she-goat in this, quote, bag of hope that helps them create milk and dairy products, but it also allows them to breed the she-goat and to have a micro-enterprise to help support themselves. Last year, by the way, you helped us free over 200 individual enslaved human beings. And all of them got the survival kit, the bag of hope, the goats, the things that made their lives different. And if you heard me tell the story of Adat in the first hour, then you know how significant it was that somebody listening to this show picked up the phone and set her free. Friends, I'm asking you to do the same thing. We have 66 more left on our list that we know need our help and that could very well soon be free. Would you be so generous as to be one that could give $25 a month for 10 months, or $50 a month for 5 months, or a one-time gift of $250? And if you are, friend, if you are, tonight you can know that that life will be liberated in the very short future. 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010. Please be as generous as you can and help a girl just like Adat find freedom tonight. Kevin McCullough coming back. Karol Markowicz from the New York Post joins us in the Ladies Lounge on Radio Night Live. Hi, Hi, it's Kevin McCullough, and we are reaching a very important point in the COVID-19 crisis that most people in America don't know anything about. See, the COVID crisis in America has played out along one set of talking points. We must find a cure. We've got to have a vaccine. We need new therapies. We've got to make sure that reopenings begin, which is good. That's what America needs. That's how we will get our life back on track. And it's important for that to happen because of how the COVID crisis has actually interrupted the life of the third world. Well, wait a second, Kevin. What do you mean by that? Well, it's this simple. When the first world, Europe and America and the developed countries on planet Earth, began to experience the COVID crisis, the poverty that was already engulfing third world countries took a deeper and darker hold on all of them. That is nowhere more pronounced than in the Sudan region of Africa. In the northern Sudanese country, those who have been enslaved by northern Sudanese had their conditions become worse. Slave owners couldn't get as much food, so the little bit that they were already feeding to their slaves got taken away. They also got harsher crackdown on not getting work done and more brutal circumstances like genital mutilation and starvation. Sometimes poking out slaves' eyes who choose to disobey sometimes basic and abusive orders. Friends, these things have been occurring and they continue to occur. But Christian Solidarity International, somebody that we have advocated for the last dozen years or so at Kevin McCullough, all things related to this broadcast, Radio Night Live, The Kevin McCullough Show, and all of our podcasts, one of the things we have been advocating for is the liberation of those slaves so that they're not even in the ownership of those slave masters any longer. See, they came to be slaves while the Sudanese Civil War was underway. And when government powers brokered the peace and South Sudan was created as the world's youngest nation, it didn't address, none of the global powers addressed the continuing slave scenario there. Friends, we can make a difference, as we have in years past, by choosing to liberate slave by slave on an individual underground railroad negotiated basis, not trading dollars for lives, but trading something that is of value to the slave master, a vaccine for his cattle called Novidium. It will help his cattle survive through the harsh summer and weather extremes, and in exchange, they'll release a slave. CSI has been involved in this negotiation for dozens of years and have helped freed tens of thousands. Over 100,000 slaves have now been freed. The vaccine cost about $50. And then in addition to that, CSI would like to offer every slave that is liberated what's called a bag of hope. It includes a tarp that can be turned into a tent. It includes a year's worth of sorghum seed to grow a coming crop. It includes a year's worth of sorghum grain to be able to feed themselves for the first year when they win their liberty. Friends, you can make a life for a slave know that freedom by just giving that gift of $250. They also get a she-goat to help produce some income for the family and gardening tools to help them on their way. It is a wonderful, wonderful way to help someone who has been ravaged by the COVID-19 crisis. Would you help free a slave right now? 888-342-1010 is the number. 888-342-1010. 888-342-1010. We need your help right now. 888-342-1010. That's 888-342-1010. You can also go to csi-usa.org and click on Kevin McCullough's picture. Radio Night Live, so glad you're with us. This segment, this portion being brought to you by USAMasks2020.com. How would you like to have not just a mask that you can wear to go out and do your running around and be socially distanced and all the right things, but how about one that has like the Statue of Liberty on the front and says New York Strong right on the side, or one that has the American flag? They are so cool. Go to USAMasks2020.com, USAMasks2020.com. They are rewashable up to 50 times. And if you use my promo code tonight, KMC, you're going to get a 20% discount when you call. USAMasks2020.com, USAMasks2020.com. Now, Karol Markowicz is one of my favorite people to ever have on. And Karol, You spent Memorial Day celebrating it your way. We did the same in the McCullough house. Welcome back to Radio Night Live.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that in New York City, there's a real class divide between people who use the parks, like Central Park and Prospect Park, and the people that use the beaches. And if the situation was reversed and the parks were, needed to be opened, there would be no question that they would be opened and staffed and secure and all the other things. And there was never a discussion about closing park entrances, even as the parks got kind of busy. Yet the beaches was a big question mark, and de Blasio finally gave in as if he could do such a thing, because the beaches are pretty impossible to close in New York City because they're quite long.
Right.
And he gave in and allowed us to be on the sand, but not to go in the water, which really is the main part of the beach, Kevin. Sand is great, but nobody goes to the beach for the sand.
Not exclusively, although I'm
Right.
sure you saw the thing floating around on Twitter over the weekend that New Yorkers had the right to sit on the beach and not go in the water, and in California they allowed people to
Right.
go in the water but not sit on the beach, and
Yeah,
both coasts said it was science that was making them do that.
Right, of course. I call that government at work. It's so absurd.
Oh, you mean it's just Monday?
Right. And I think the other thing is that a lot of people at this point are afraid to challenge any of the government's directives on this stuff. You don't want to be anti-science, right? You don't want to be the person who didn't take, a virus that killed 100,000 Americans seriously. You're sort of cowed into believing what they tell you and not asking any questions, because otherwise you become the freak who doesn't believe science. But actually they're the ones who are not following science, and salt water is good, chlorine water is good. All of that is scientifically proven to kill the virus. So why are we not on the beaches and in the pools?
Well, and okay, take everything that you just said and then add this to it. So on Twitter over the weekend, and I've been following this guy for a little while. I think it's a guy. It could be a female. I'm not sure, but Boricua Gato is his name on Twitter, and it's obviously a very science-driven Twitter handle, where the person that is doing it has been reporting on massive numbers coming out of the countries globally, and he's been doing it for weeks. And it's a little bit tedious, and some of it's a little bit down in the weeds. But the thing that he posted over the weekend that was really amazing was that he studied Sweden, the UK, and Netherlands, which had very wide variance in their policies on COVID lockdowns. And everybody knows that Sweden was much more open. UK was almost like the US in terms of like total lockdown, etc. After they've looked at, and the other thing that they all had in common is that they only took numbers of confirmed deaths. So it's none of this reported deaths.
Right.
2 to 5, 8 weeks later, you get other numbers that seem to match. Sometimes don't match other times, like we do here. I don't understand any of that. But they did it all off the same kind of science metric. Okay, so it's an even measurement in each country under the same circumstances. And when you took into account all that he puts into this, and the UK had its tight lockdown and Sweden had almost no lockdown, it looks like that there was almost zero difference in terms of the flattening of the curve and how fast and when and everything else. And the deaths per million, the differences was like 300 in Sweden deaths per million and 500 in the UK deaths per million.
Right. That's the thing. The UK is climbing, continues to climb despite a lockdown, and it's just baffling that we're not connecting that being outside is the right move.
So
again,
going back to your science thing, again, it's the science people saying, well, you're bad if you work. But is that really what science is saying? It doesn't look like that's the case in some of these other places.
Right. And vitamin D deficiency is one of the main things that people who die of COVID-19 have. I hate having to say this, but I'm not a truther. I believe this. I was, at the forefront of saying that we should take this seriously. And it's I don't
you
feel like the
quarantined
options,
before everybody else did. You were like a week ahead of everybody.
Yep, exactly. But I also ended before everybody else because enough already. We have to go outside. We need the vitamin D. We need to be outdoors. The inside might be what's killing us at this point.
So what would you like the mayor to do starting today, if he could, to
staff those beaches? We're going to see drownings. We absolutely are going to see drownings in New York City if he does not put lifeguards on those beaches. Telling New Yorkers they could sit on the sand in the hot summer and not go in the water is absurd. It helps nothing, and we're going to see other kinds of deaths because of it.
Well, I was thankful. We went down the Jersey Shore, and I was thankful that Governor Murphy, as much as of an issue as I take with him about a lot of things, and I don't agree with him on very much of anything, they did have the New Jersey beaches open, and there was some swimming where you could, and there was a lot of playing on the sand, at least for the McCullough kids, and it was
right.
It was just like a little glimpse of like what we could
Magical.
get back to. You did. You felt like you were almost at a different point in time.
Yes, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we spent the last 2 days there. It's been amazing. It's just wonderful.
Well, and so I want people to go read that. It's in the New York Post, and it's titled Bill de Blasio's Class Bias is Showing with His Ugly Beach Ban. What do you think, just last minute, Karol, Governor Cuomo, he's still not really owning the nursing home decision.
Yeah.
He's still trying to say that was somehow made in Washington, D.C.
Right. I've got a big piece coming out on that in the Washington Examiner where I look at all of Cuomo's bad decisions. It's not limited to just the nursing home thing, which obviously was a very deadly and terrible decision on his part that he refuses to own up to. He made many bad decisions. Bill de Blasio made better decisions than Governor Cuomo did. And you know what I feel about Bill de Blasio.
Whoa, them's fighting words.
I lay out in my piece how Bill de Blasio got the better of Cuomo at least 4 times, which is just a crazy thing to say, right?
I think you and Councilman Borelli and maybe Frank Morano are all going to have to get together and write an encyclopedic compendium to the Cuomo de Blasio era. Because it is
Those are
one
some
of
my favorite people.
It is one of the most bizarre periods of New York history, in my estimation. I think this has been a weird relationship between Albany and Manhattan, and it's just not, or in this
crazy.
case, Prospect Park.
Yeah.
All right, Karol, good stuff.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Go and read her stuff in the New York Post every week. Kevin McCullough coming back. Final thoughts on this very busy Saturday night. Radio Night Live concludes in a moment. Kevin McCullough, have I told you what a great night's sleep you can get by sleeping on a MyPillow? It's really true. It's changed my life for a number of years now. And ever since I've been sleeping on a MyPillow, I don't have interrupted sleep. I don't have to fold my pillows in half and stack them up on top of each other and do all kinds of weird stuff. Why? Because MyPillow will conform to the shape that I want it to. And it'll stay cool all night and keep that shape. And come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. Is your pillow warranted for 10 years? I didn't think so. Well, right now, if you call MyPillow and you use my promo code, you're going to get the best offer that's ever been granted on radio or television. $69.98. That's $34.99 per pillow. That's all it costs. $69.98. 2 premiums, $34.99 each. Never seen this offer before. He called the show just to tell us what it was. Here's the phone number. 800-506-2641. Promo code KMC. Again, 800-506-2641. Promo code KMC. Or online at mypillow.com. Hi, Kevin McCullough. Shopping for an engagement ring can be very stressful. You want a unique ring at a great price. The big jewelry stores try to sell you what they have in stock. Others try to upsell you till it's way over your budget. Disappointment inevitably sets in, and you end up settling for a ring that you're not totally satisfied with. Friends, that's why I urge every one of you, my friends, my listeners, even my family, to visit Lord's Diamonds and see my very good friend Anu. You see, Anu is different. She takes great pride in working with her client's budget, finding the right diamond, and creating a unique engagement ring that the bride cherishes forever. There is no comparison. Honesty, integrity, good Christian values. This is what Anu and Lord's Diamonds are all about. It's the height of wedding and engagement season. Don't settle. Buy a ring everyone will admire, and if you mention Kevin McCullough, you're going to get an additional $500 off the price of wedding bands. To set up an appointment, call 212-789-8500. That's 212-789-8500, or online at Lord's Diamonds. Hi, Kevin McCullough. I've been telling you about it for the longest time. The market goes up, the market goes down, the economy kind of wiggles around. Yes, we're doing better. Yes, it's pretty good days that we're in. But did you know that if something took a turn for the worse, that right now it is legal in this country, right this very second, for the government to reach into your 401k, IRA, and bank accounts, saving accounts, checking accounts, etc., and take money out and leave it instead an IOU? That's called the bail-in.
Get the facts by reading about the coming bail-in when you call and get a free copy of the Landmark Capital's exclusive white paper on the coming bail-in. See how all this was set up to manage the out-of-control national debt? Learn how to protect your future and your hard-earned money by investing those funds into precious metals. So when the bail-in happens, they can't touch your precious metals, and you have peace of mind. Call Landmark today, 844-604-2575.
Radio Night Live, Kevin McCullough, glad to have you back with us. Yes, it has been a very busy week and a very big night here at Radio Night Live. If you missed any part of it, by the way, we have the podcasts, which are always free of charge. We don't ever put them behind a paywall at iTunes and also at SoundCloud.com. But we also, in recent weeks, have been able to carve up the segments of the television stream and be able to put those on Twitter. And so if there was someone, either Bernie Kerik or A.R. Benard or Mike Huckabee or Sidney Powell or K.T. McFarland or Karol Markowicz that you wanted to go back and re-listen to, or maybe forward on to some friends that you feel like might have some reason to take a listen to what they have to say, we're going to have those on Twitter first thing tomorrow. You should be able to get those as well. And they're nice condensed little packages. Also, thank you to those of you that have decided you're going to step up and be part of the CSI slave liberation story this year. We are liberating human lives from tyranny. And while we see the absolute destruction of democratically and progressive held cities here in America, I'm thankful that there are a number of us that even in the midst of COVID-19 have said, you know what? These women, these children, they have it worse than we do. And friends, COVID-19 is actually impacting them. When you're at the bottom of the food chain and you're already hungry, when COVID-19 comes in and disrupts the entire distribution plan for food worldwide, you get even hungrier. And so their liberation by Christian Solidarity International and your help with us together, this all matters and makes a huge difference. 888-342-1010. 888-342-1010. Precious, precious people, helping them find their freedom, and your compassion is what makes that occur. 888-342-1010. It only costs $25 for 10 months to liberate one slave. You could do that right now, or $50 a month for 5 months, or if you really want to see them liberated as quickly as possible, $250 one-time gift, and that's it. Your gift sets them free. Never to be recaptured, never to be re-enslaved, and given that whole bag of hope that helps them start a brand new life in ways that are just almost impossible to describe. So anyway, thank you for those of you that are participating in that. Now, tomorrow, I've had it on my heart big time to write tomorrow about the current state of affairs in America. We have got cities that are literally burning. And we have elected officials over those cities, like Bill de Blasio in New York, or Mr. Fry in Minneapolis, or the ones in out west that just don't seem to get it or care. Friends, I've asked this question all week on Twitter, and I haven't gotten an answer to it. How does further lawlessness bring about a lawful justice? I don't see in any way that that's even possible. Because if you think because George Floyd got suffocated wrongfully by a police officer abusing his power, because you saw that happen, you believe that gives you the right to loot a Target store or to burn to the ground a police precinct or to attack a television network or to do any of these things. Friends, you're not part of the solution. And we begin tonight with where I started. If you support rioting and looting and the rioters, you're standing against justice, the justice that you say that you're seeking. I'm Kevin McCullough. See you next time.